Hi, and welcome to Reddit Confessions. Buckle up, because this story doesn't start with a wedding, or a love story, or even an argument. It starts with a picture frame. An empty one. I was dusting the bookshelf on a Tuesday afternoon, something I never do, by the way. It's one of those chores you only get around to when you're avoiding thinking about something else. Or, in my case, someone. As I reached for the top shelf, I noticed a frame that used to hold one of our wedding photos. But the photo was gone. Not replaced. Not broken. Just missing. No explanation. No note. Just a lonely rectangle of nothing staring back at me like a silent punch to the gut. I stood there, frozen, frame in hand, trying to figure out whether to panic or pretend it was a mistake. Maybe it fell out. Maybe she swapped it for something else. Maybe I was losing my mind. That was the first crack. That night, I confronted her, not angrily, just confused. Hey, what happened to the wedding photo? She didn't even look up from her tablet. Just said, it didn't feel right being up anymore. I wish I could tell you I asked her what that meant. I wish I could say I pressed her. But I didn't. I just nodded like an idiot and walked away. I tried to tell myself she was going through a phase. A mood. Something temporary. The second crack came a few days later when she started humming in the shower again. A soft, dreamy kind of humming, something I hadn't heard in years. And it wasn't a tune she associated with us. I didn't recognize it at all, which made it worse. That's when I knew there was someone else. I didn't need texts or lipstick stains or some dramatic confrontation. I could feel it, like static in the walls. She was glowing, and I wasn't the light switch. Then came the line. We were sitting in the car after a grocery run. I had just paid for her oat milk and stupidly expensive shampoo. She stared out the windshield like she was watching a movie I wasn't invited to, and then she said it. With him, I finally felt something. No context. No warning. Just that. And me? I stared at the steering wheel and said the only thing I could think of. Great. Have fun. She flinched. For the first time in weeks, she actually reacted. But not in the way you'd expect. She looked offended. Offended. Now she walks around the house like I shattered something. Like I broke the rules of some secret agreement I never signed. And me? I'm the one sleeping next to a half-packed suitcase I didn't pack. Welcome to my reality. When I tell you I wasn't planning to snoop, I mean it. That's not who I am. I'm the type of guy who knocks before opening the bathroom door in my own house, even if it's empty. I believe in privacy. Or I used to, until I realized mine had been violated long before I even thought of checking her phone. It was an accident. Seriously. Claire had left her phone on the counter while she was outside watering the plants. Those same succulents she used to forget to water for weeks until recently. I wasn't even planning to touch it, but it lit up with a message preview that just said, I miss Sunday. No name. Just that. My heart did this weird collapsing thing, like when you misstep going down the stairs. I stared at the screen too long. And then I picked it up. And I hate that I did. She had no passcode. I don't know if that was confidence or carelessness. But the phone opened straight to her gallery. And right at the top was a folder named Recently Deleted. You know, the place where secrets go to die, but don't stay dead for 30 days. I tapped it. My fingers were shaking, and I kept telling myself I'd stop after one photo. Just one. Just enough to calm the chaos in my chest. The first image was of her, sitting on a picnic blanket I didn't recognize, under a tree I'd never seen, with a wine glass in her hand and a smile that didn't belong to me anymore. In the background, blurred out but unmistakably close, was a man's knee. Jeans. A different kind of wine glass. And her bare foot resting against his ankle. My throat went dry. I didn't even blink. I just scrolled. There were 6 more. One of them showed her laughing, mid-laugh, hair tangled in the wind, her face turned towards someone just off camera. You could see the spark in her eyes. The same spark she hadn't had for me since. God, I don't even know when. Maybe never. But it was the last photo that hit hardest. It wasn't racy. It wasn't even romantic. It was just her, sleeping in the passenger seat of a car. His jacket draped over her lap. Her hand loosely curled around what looked like a fast food wrapper. It wasn't the image itself. It was the intimacy of it. The familiarity. Someone doesn't take that kind of picture unless they care deeply. Unless they've been let in. That's when I realized. I'd already been let out. I locked the phone. Put it back exactly where she left it. Walked out onto the porch and sat in the same chair I always sit in when I need to pretend I'm fine. Claire came back inside 5 minutes later, kissed me on the cheek, and said she was going to take a bath. I smiled. I said, sure. Take your time. She doesn't know what I saw. Not yet. But she'll feel it. Not today. Not tomorrow. But soon. The silence she built between us. I'm learning to use it too. I hadn't planned to meet him. Honestly, I thought I'd go the rest of my life never seeing his face. But something about those photos haunted me, not because of what they showed, but because of what they didn't. No names. No clear face. No proof. Just moments. Fragments of someone else's life that used to be mine. But it turns out, Claire wasn't very careful after all. 3 days after I looked through her phone, she said she was going out to clear her head. No makeup, casual clothes, like she wanted me to believe she was just running errands. But she brought the good perfume, the one she only wears when she's either mad at me or trying to impress someone. I watched her leave through the kitchen window, sipping coffee like I hadn't just memorized every lie she told with her body language. As soon as she turned off our street, I grabbed my keys. Now, I'm not a tracker or stalker or whatever you'd call this, but something primal took over. I drove slow, turned off my headlights when I got close, stayed one car behind. She ended up at a little coffee shop on the other side of town, the kind of place we never go because she says their iced lattes are too sweet. She parked. She waited. I waited. And then he arrived. I don't know what I expected. Some smirking gym rat. A bearded poet with a guitar slung across his back. Maybe a guy with a motorcycle jacket and a dumb tattoo that made him look like a midlife crisis on legs. But no, he looked normal. Average. Painfully average. Like someone you wouldn't even notice in a grocery store checkout line. Khaki shorts. Gray hoodie. Cheap sunglasses. Probably didn't floss. That kind of guy. He kissed her forehead when he saw her. Not her lips. Her forehead. And she smiled. That same soft, dreamy smile from the photos. The one I thought was mine, once. They went inside. And I, because I'm apparently a glutton for emotional punishment, followed them in 5 minutes later. Sat 2 tables behind. Put in earbuds without music. Just listened. I couldn't hear everything. But what I did hear. Chilling. She told him I don't listen. That I'm kind but absent. That I retreat when things get difficult. She said I'm too quiet. That she feels invisible at home. He nodded like he'd heard it all before. Like they'd had this conversation a dozen times. Like my life was just a list of complaints in her mouth, and he was the therapist she was paying with affection. Then she said something I'll never forget. He didn't even ask who you were. He just said, great. Have fun. He laughed. She laughed with him. And in that moment, I wanted to vanish into the floor. Not because I was angry, but because I realized I had disappeared from her life, from the version of our story she tells. I wasn't even the villain. I was just nothing. I left before they saw me. I sat in my car for a long time, gripping the steering wheel like it was the only thing tethering me to reality. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, slowly accepting that my marriage had ended long before I noticed the cracks. But here's the part that still messes with me. As I pulled away, I saw him glance at his phone. And for a split second, I saw the lock screen. It was a picture of her. Not of them. Not of a moment. Just her, laughing, alone, in soft morning light. A picture I didn't take. That was when I realized this man doesn't just have my wife. He has the version of her I never even got. It had rained the night before. That soft, rhythmic kind of rain that taps at the windows and makes the world feel quieter than it should. I hadn't been sleeping well. Not since the coffee shop. Not since hearing her laugh with him like it was something sacred. I started waking up around 3 a.m. every night, sweating, staring at the ceiling, trying to remember when I became someone my wife could describe so casually to a stranger. That night, Claire was asleep early. Too early. And not the kind of sleep that comes from exhaustion. This was the deep, peaceful sleep of someone who's emotionally at peace. Someone who's made up their mind. She didn't even stir when I dropped my phone charger behind the nightstand. That's what started it, really. As I bent down to retrieve the cord, my fingers brushed against something else. A corner of paper. Tucked beneath a stack of old books and a lavender-scented lotion bottle she hadn't used in months. It was a letter. Folded neatly, sealed in an envelope with no name on it. I don't know why I opened it. I shouldn't have. But I did. At the top, in her handwriting. Her real handwriting. The one she uses when she's not leaving to-do lists on the fridge, it said, "If I had the courage." I felt my stomach tighten. The letter wasn't addressed to me. Not by name. But it was about me. She wrote about how she felt like she was disappearing in her own home. how she would talk and feel like her words dissolved before they even reached my ears. She said she used to believe in the comfort of quiet, but now the quiet just felt like being forgotten. Then she talked about him. Not by name. Just you. But the language changed. It softened. Became intimate. She thanked him for making her feel visible again. For noticing the way she curled her hair when she was nervous. For remembering her favorite kind of wine. Not just the color, but the vineyard. She ended the letter with a single, devastating line. If I had the courage, I'd choose you. But I don't. Not yet. I stared at that sentence for longer than I cared to admit. Not out of shock, but because I realized she hadn't written that letter to give it to him. She'd written it to herself. A quiet rehearsal. A way of easing guilt before making a choice. A choice that clearly hadn't been made yet. Or maybe already had, and she was just waiting for the right excuse to leave. I folded the letter back exactly how I found it. Slid it beneath the books. Went into the kitchen and sat in the dark, listening to the ticking of the wall clock like it was the only thing still willing to talk to me. She doesn't know I read it. I haven't said a word. I make her coffee every morning, still fix the drafty bathroom window, still smile when she says she's working late, even though I know she's not. But the most disturbing part? Since that night, she's been nicer. Not fake nice. Not performative. Genuinely nicer. She lingers longer when we talk. She asks if I need anything when she goes out. She even laughed at one of my jokes last night, and not in the way you laugh to be polite, but like she meant it. And that terrifies me, because I don't know if she's trying to repair something, or gently, carefully, trying to make me let go without a fight. I never meant to eavesdrop. Really, it wasn't like I pressed a glass to the door or crept down the hallway in socks. It just happened. I was in the garage, fixing the door that's been sticking ever since the spring thaw, when I realized I left my phone inside. I walked back through the side door, quietly, like I always do when Claire's on a call. She's always been protective of her conversations. Calls from work, her mom, her friends. She paces and whispers, like even walls have ears. But that afternoon, I stepped into the kitchen and froze when I heard her say my name. She was standing in the dining room, back to me, facing the window, phone pressed tight to her ear. "No, he doesn't know," she said, voice hushed but steady. "He's been weirdly calm. I thought he'd explode, or at least cry. But he just said, 'Have fun,' and went on like nothing happened." She laughed, but it was nervous. Awkward. Like even she wasn't sure what reaction she had wanted from me. There was a pause. Then she said something that made my heart stop. "No, I haven't told him I've been seeing you. I mean, not directly. Not you. Just him. Like, generally. It's easier that way." Her sister must have said something, because Claire went silent for a second before answering. "I don't want to be the bad guy," she said quietly. "I'm just trying to find a way to let go without ruining everything." That line hit me like a cold slap to the face. Let go? Without ruining everything? As if there was a version of this where I'd be okay. As if she could just gently lower me into heartbreak like it was a warm bath and I wouldn't notice I was drowning. She turned suddenly, and I stepped back into the hallway like a coward. I leaned against the wall, trying to catch my breath, my pulse hammering like I'd just run a marathon barefoot. I didn't even care who she was talking to anymore. It wasn't about the details, it was the tone. The calm, calculated way she was managing her exit, like a CEO resigning from a company she built but no longer believed in. She didn't see me. I waited until she went upstairs, then walked back outside like I'd never heard a thing. That night, I watched her sleep. Not in a creepy way, just watched. She curled into herself like she always did, one arm under her pillow, the other resting loosely across the mattress as if she was reaching for something, or someone, not there. I sat in the chair across the room for over an hour. You know what's cruel? Not the cheating, not the lying. It's the fact that she's still here, still brushing her teeth next to me, still humming while she folds laundry, still wearing the slippers I bought her for Christmas 2 years ago like everything's fine. It's the illusion that hurts most, that she can drift this far from me and still look me in the eye. I haven't confronted her. Not yet. I've come close. I've even rehearsed it in the mirror. Claire, I know. But every time I try, I remember the way she said it to her sister, how she doesn't want to be the bad guy. And maybe I'm letting her have that. Maybe I'm making it easier for her. Maybe that's on me. But something shifted in me that day. Not rage. Not revenge. Just awareness. The kind of clarity that doesn't go away. The email came in at 2:43 a.m., and I wouldn't have even noticed if it weren't for Milo, our dog, scratching at the back door like he needed to go out. I shuffled downstairs in that half-asleep fog, let him into the yard, and glanced at my phone while I waited. It was supposed to be a quick scroll. Instead, I saw it. A message from an address I didn't recognize. No profile photo. No signature. Just a Gmail with a bunch of numbers. The subject line simply said, "Sorry." Now, I'm not the paranoid type by default, but after everything that had already happened, that one word sent a shockwave through me. I tapped it open, and my thumb hesitated over the screen like I was afraid it would explode. There were only 4 lines in the message. "You don't know me, but you should." I didn't know she was married until it was too late. She lied to me too. I thought you deserved to hear it from someone who isn't pretending. No name, no greeting, no sign-off. I reread it at least 10 times, trying to convince myself it wasn't what it looked like. But deep down, I knew. It was him. Not some guy she flirted with on Instagram. Not a one-night mistake. The guy. The one from the photos. The one from the coffee shop. The one who took that picture of her sleeping in his passenger seat. The one she wrote the letter for. And this was his guilt bleeding through in the middle of the night. I sat down at the kitchen table, the cold creeping up from the tile floor into my bare feet, and stared at the screen. I don't know how long I sat there. I didn't reply. I didn't even move. I just unraveled. He didn't know she was married. Let that sink in. She didn't just betray me. She betrayed him too. She wove 2 different stories, 2 different lives, and never once gave either of us the truth. I was the husband who made things too easy. He was the escape she glamorized. And we were both nothing more than opposite ends of her balancing act. But here's the part that really wrecked me. He had more honesty in 4 lines than she's shown me in 4 years. He said I deserve the truth. She's still pretending I don't even need it. I didn't confront her the next morning. I watched her make her smoothie, humming that same tune again, and I watched her drink it like she hadn't torched the ground we built our lives on. I watched her look at me and ask, "You okay?" Like I was the one acting strange. And I said, "Yeah, just didn't sleep well." She smiled and kissed me on the forehead. Just like always. The performance was seamless. But something in me cracked open that morning. I started thinking about timelines, about the way she's tried to keep everything looking normal. Her nice behavior, the renewed small talk, the way she complimented my haircut last week even though it's the exact same cut I've had for 10 years. She's not staying because she wants to fix things. She's staying to control the narrative, to leave when it looks clean, to exit with dignity, to keep the sympathy of her friends and family. Because if I leave, if I blow up, if I become the angry, bitter husband, she walks away the victim of a cold man who didn't try. And you know what's worse? It's working. Everyone still thinks we're doing better. Her mom commented on one of my Facebook posts saying how lovely we look lately. Our neighbor even asked me the other day what our secret was to lasting love. I wanted to laugh, or scream, or break something, but I didn't. Because I know now, I'm not just watching a marriage fall apart. I'm watching a performance. And I've been cast as the fool who didn't notice the curtain closing. I used to think people who planted recording devices in their own homes were either paranoid or already broken beyond repair. And maybe I was both by then. But the thing is, when you start questioning what's real in your own life, what's actually yours, paranoia doesn't feel that crazy anymore. It starts to feel like survival. It happened on a Thursday. Claire had just left to grab a few things for the weekend, which was code, I suspected, for seeing him. Her purse was too packed for a simple errand run, and she'd thrown on lipstick like it was a date night. And I, sitting on the couch pretending to watch the news, felt the click in my brain like a gear finally snapping into place. So I got up. I walked straight to my desk drawer, grabbed the small clip-on voice recorder I used to use for interviews years ago when I thought I wanted to be a journalist, and turned it on. It still worked. Still had battery. Still had memory. Like it had been waiting for this. I slid it into the base of the standing lamp in our bedroom. Claire never touched that lamp. She always complained it gave off a clinical vibe, whatever that means. But the angle was perfect. It faced the bed, the dresser, the corner chair where she sometimes curled up to talk on the phone with her back, turned like she was shielding secrets with posture alone. Then I waited. When she got home 2 hours later, she was glowing. That's the only way I can describe it. There was color in her cheeks, softness in her walk, and the way she hung her keys on the hook. It was almost like she was floating. She made small talk with me in the kitchen. She even teased me about how I always leave the dish towel bunched up on the counter. I smiled, laughed, nodded along like a sitcom husband who didn't know the season finale was about betrayal. Then she went upstairs to shower. I stayed downstairs for a bit, pretending to organize the pantry just so she wouldn't feel watched. It wasn't until after midnight that she returned to the bedroom and I watched her settle in, phone in hand, lights off except for the lamp by the window. She didn't call him. She texted. I couldn't see the messages from where I sat in the hallway outside the door, silent, still, pretending I'd gone to bed early in the guest room. But I could hear the tiny buzz of her phone, the rhythm of her fingers on the screen, and the occasional soft laugh she tried to swallow. I waited until she fell asleep, and then I retrieved the recorder. I didn't listen to it right away. I couldn't. My hands were shaking too hard. It wasn't until the next day, when Claire left for her morning jog, that I locked the guest room door, sat at my desk, and hit play. It started with silence. Then the rustle of fabric, the creak of our mattress, the faint tapping of her screen. And then, her voice, barely above a whisper. She wasn't on a call. She was leaving a voice message. Hey, she said. I can't talk right now, obviously. He's downstairs. But I just wanted to say thank you for today. You always know how to make me feel. Like me. I hate that I have to pretend here. I hate that I come home and feel like I'm erasing myself again. But just hearing your voice earlier made it easier. She exhaled a shaky breath. I wish I could just leave. But I can't. Not yet. I don't want to destroy him. He's fragile. He doesn't even see it, but I know it'd break him. I paused the recording there. My ears were burning. My chest felt hollow. Fragile. That word echoed through me like a blade being twisted. I don't know what hurt more, that she pitied me, or that she felt responsible for managing me, like I was some porcelain doll she didn't want to shatter until the timing suited her. She stayed for me, not out of love, not out of guilt, but out of obligation. And worse, she was resenting me for making her stay, as if I asked for this. I deleted the recording, not because I wanted to forget, but because I couldn't stomach the sound of her voice trying to gently plan my emotional collapse like it was some kind of long-distance move. She wasn't preparing for heartbreak. She was planning logistics. And the terrifying thing is, I still couldn't bring myself to confront her. I just sat there, arms on the desk, face buried in my hands, wondering how I became this person. The man too scared to even fight back. We were sitting at her parents' dinner table, the four of us, just like we'd done 100 times before. The same worn-down silverware set, the same slightly overcooked roast her mom always swore by, and the same cheap red wine that left your lips stained after 2 sips. On the surface, everything was exactly the same. But I wasn't. And apparently, neither was her father. Claire had been performing all evening, laughing too loudly at her mom's passive-aggressive jokes, touching my arm every few minutes like it was instinct, giving me that smile she used to give me when we first dated, the one she hadn't used in months. It wasn't real. I knew it. She knew it. But her parents? They didn't. Or at least, I thought they didn't. Then it happened. Her mom brought up the topic of travel, as she often did, and asked where we were thinking of going this fall. Claire looked right at me and said, with that perfect rehearsed tone, well, we were thinking of maybe Vermont. But honestly, we've been so happy lately, I kind of just want to stay home and enjoy our time together. That's when her father froze. Fork in midair, eyes locked on his daughter, face pale in a way I'd never seen before. He didn't say anything, just gave her a slow, measured look like he'd just seen a crack in the mask. She saw it too. Her voice caught on the next word. And for the rest of the dinner, he barely touched his plate. He pulled me aside as we were leaving. I don't know what's going on, he said, low and hesitant. But you don't deserve whatever it is she's trying to hide. It was the first time anyone had said something for me. Not out of pity, not out of assumption, just truth. And it was the first time I realized I wasn't the one breaking. Claire was. She'd built this fantasy in her head where she could juggle guilt and romance, escape and comfort. But the truth had started seeping out from under the doors she thought she'd locked. Her sister, her father, that email, the voice message, and now me, standing in the middle of it all, finally awake. That night, I didn't yell. I didn't even bring up the recording, or the photos, or the letter. I just told her, you don't have to pretend anymore. I'm letting go. I'm going to be okay. And maybe one day, so will you. She cried. And I didn't. I moved out 2 days later. Quietly. with dignity. No slammed doors. No scorched earth. Just freedom. I got my own place. Started walking Milo along the lake trail every morning. I even signed up for a woodworking class at the community center, something I'd always talked about but never did because, well, I thought I had forever to try. Turns out, starting over is less about finding someone new and more about finding yourself again. Claire? She reached out once. Just a text that said, I didn't know what I was doing. I never replied. Because by then, I already knew who I was becoming. Stronger, wiser, lighter. And to all of you watching this on Reddit Confessions, thank you. If you made it this far, I want to hear from you. What part of this story hit you hardest? Have you ever seen the truth slipping through someone else's smile? Leave your story in the comments. Let's talk. Sometimes, healing starts with being heard.